This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. Nature roughed up the San Francisco Bay Area again today, almost a week after hitting Northern California with a catastrophic earthquake, as the number of the quake's confirmed dead officially climbed to 61, with damage estimates now topping $7 billion. Heavy rain pounded some areas and gale warnings were posted this morning. And while workers struggled at the site of the Oakland Interstate 880 disaster, there was encouraging word about that longshoreman pulled alive from highway rubble over the weekend. John Blackstone begins our coverage.
The rain hit just as commuters began what was already expected to be a torturous trip to work. As early as 6 a.m., some routes were jammed.
This area down here does not look good. We wouldn't necessarily recommend this as the route to get across the bay this morning, Lauren.
75,000 commuters who usually use the Bay Bridge have to find another way to get to work while the bridge is being repaired. Thousands ventured into the subway for the first time. Many needed to be taught how to use ticket machines.
Put in the $2 and press the plus buttons on the top.
100,000 commuters, a third more than usual, rode on BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit System, this morning.
We were just kind of squished.
Other commuters turned to a hastily organized ferry fleet to get across the bay, but wind, rain, and heavy seas made the half-hour trip a challenge for people who usually sit behind the wheel.
It's kind of hard on the passengers.
So you've had the quarter of what these boats can carry.
Exactly, right. We're not getting what we thought we would get, but I think a lot of people are waking up in the morning and looking out and say, I don't need this. You know?
But by 8 a.m., most of the commute problems had passed, perhaps because the weather discouraged so many people from even trying to get to work. For those who lost their homes in the earthquake, the weather is an added misery. 300 people are living in tents near Watsonville, one of the towns with the most destruction. The camp is cold and wet, and some children are falling ill with chickenpox. On the coast near Santa Cruz, workers found the body of one more victim of the quake. 41-year-old Gary West was killed by a landslide. Children are returning to school, but the first lesson is often what to do to prepare for the next earthquake.
And curl up like a little egg.
So many buildings in San Francisco have been damaged that city officials have called in 200 building inspectors from Los Angeles to help make surveys. The rain may cause more damage to weakened buildings. It is certainly a setback for weakened spirits. John Blackstone, CBS News, San Francisco.
A driving morning rain brought misery and new danger to the Oakland freeway disaster, making the roadway more unstable, bringing a halt to the search for 52 persons still listed as missing and probable victims in the rubble, and prompting engineers to prepare to cut out a weakened section of the double-deck highway.
They're going to dismantle from the orange X down to the 5th column.
The fear is that collapse of the section could trigger a domino effect that could imperil people and neighborhoods in a 10-block stretch.
If, in fact, that section collapsed on its own, it would be pulling and affecting the rest of the structure. It's a very unstable situation there.
You know, it's like 5 days after the earthquake, and they finally come and tell us that it's not safe.
Police began evacuating frustrated residents from the immediate area last night, a temporary relocation during the work. But California transportation officials confirmed today a 27-block stretch of the Cypress structure will now have to be taken down because of the quake damage which they admit they never thought would happen.
We are on record that we did not think this kind of a structure would collapse, but it did.
An investigation is being made into why a one-time state-of-the-art structure was turned so quickly into a state of disaster. California's governor, saying he's as stunned as anybody, called a special legislative session today to respond to the emergency.
At no time was I ever told by anybody that those freeways were unsafe.
Meanwhile, the legend of longshoreman Buck Helm grew even larger today. His condition was changed from critical to serious, doctors expressing optimism for the man who spent 90 hours trapped in a concrete tomb.
And he was asked about hurting anywhere, and he shook his head. Everybody was incredulous. How can this man with some multiple injuries not be hurting anywhere?
Helm's children and former wife have been at the hospital ever since his rescue.
There's no way to thank everybody personally, not at this point at least.
And close to the site of the Oakland freeway collapse, there was a special memorial service today to remember the victims, to comfort the survivors of a disaster that has become a daily living nightmare. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Oakland.
In Washington, congressional leaders and President Bush's aides generally agreed today on outlines of a disaster aid package for California. CBS News chief Washington correspondent Bob Schieffer reports there are still questions about how to pay for that package and about whether President Bush and federal disaster officials already have been too slow getting relief operations up and running.
The president took the afternoon off for a golf outing with some top pros and politicos, but as they relaxed, the administration's main budget official and key congressman hammered out a financial relief package for California. The enormity of the disaster has been so sobering here that for once there was almost no partisan bickering.
So there are quite a few differences, but we're not as far apart as some people might have thought we would be.
We would anticipate at this point a package that would approach $3.84 billion.
If approved as expected by the House tomorrow, the aid package will provide $1.1 billion to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, $1 billion for emergency highway repairs, and $1.2 billion for Small Business Administration loans.
The package that is now put together is perhaps only the start.
There is disagreement over where all the money should come from. The White House says the relief is possible without raising taxes, but key Democrats sharply disagree.
Let's not kid anybody. Unless there is money to be provided, either through new revenues or to cuts in other programs, this money's going to the deficit.
And a Senate hearing today underscored another Democratic concern, that the administration was slow in preparing to cope with disasters and must get its act together before another occurs.
We would have asked the director of the Federal Emergency Management Agency to come speak to us, but there is no director. I think it should be recorded that earthquakes don't wait.
Moynihan wants the president to abandon his no new taxes pledge and support an increase in the gasoline tax, not just for California highways, but for much-needed road repairs nationwide. So far, the White House isn't buying that. Bob Schieffer, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Authorities in Pasadena, Texas, near Houston today said nearly 90 people were injured, some critically, when a series of explosions ripped through a plastics plant. The blasts along the Houston ship channel sent a fireball into the sky visible 15 miles away. The blasts were triggered when a seal blew out, releasing a compound used in making plastics. The injured were treated for burns, breathing problems, and cuts from broken glass. More than 700 students were evacuated from an elementary school a mile away after the explosion blew out windows. Space Shuttle Atlantis came home today, safe, sound, and early. NASA had the 5-member crew land about 3 hours earlier than planned because of possible high winds later in the day over the California desert landing strip. The shuttle crew deployed the little Galileo spacecraft while in orbit. Galileo now more than 1 million miles out on a 6-year trek to explore Jupiter.
Nose gear touchdown.
Still to come on the CBS Evening News. Martha Teichner on a Hungarian declaration of independence, the latest chip off the communist bloc. And Gary Reeves on the new Madrid fault, another whole region on shaky ground.
Piloting a corporate jet for Dow can be interesting and rewarding, particularly when it's an Angel flight. The corporate Angel network uses empty seats on company business trips to fly cancer patients who need specialized treatment. Patients like Christy. Dow was the first to make over 100 of these flights. Welcome aboard, Angel. This company does great things. This is one of them.
Dow lets you do great things.
It's happening now. The Crab Lovers Festival at Red Lobster. King crab from icy Arctic waters, steaming, succulent. Delicate snow crab to dip, drip, and savor. And now get your taste of our sweet, meaty Pacific Dungeness. We've created 8 crab and seafood combinations starting at just $6.95. They're here now and only at Red Lobster. Friday through Sunday, try our crab and shrimp special, just $10.95.
Announcing a new generation of owner satisfaction. We're so sure you'll love your new Oldsmobile, we'll let you return it within 30 days or 1,500 miles if you don't. Who else does that? Unlike some warranties, Oldsmobiles covers just one part. This is the part. Oldsmobile now offers roadside assistance around the clock, even in places where there aren't any clocks. The Oldsmobile Edge, there's nothing else like it.
33 years ago today, blood ran in the streets of Budapest, Hungary, as anti-communist Hungarians began a doomed uprising against Soviet domination. That was 1956. Today, the same streets were washed with tears, tears of grief for the 32,000 people who died in the 1956 uprising, and tears of joy for the victory of their cause, the birth today of a new republic, a more democratic Hungary. Beginning our coverage tonight of the changing face of communism, Martha Teichner is on the scene in Hungary.
From this day, the name of our country is the Republic of Hungary. The declaration by Hungary's Prime Minister was made 33 years to the day after the Soviets moved in to crush the Hungarian Revolution in 1956. The symbolism was intentional. Hungary chose to make its final break from communist control on the anniversary of its bloodiest defeat.
My heart is full with, I don't know what, it's something great.
It makes me feel very proud, finally. This country is free.
Today, the general who led the 1956 revolution laid a wreath at the Monument of Heroes in Budapest. A year ago, police beat demonstrators who tried to do the same thing. Today was the first time Hungarians have been allowed to mark publicly the events of 1956.
For the last year, every day has been the first time for something, some symbol of the disintegration of communism in Hungary.
Communism is finished. Soviets go home. A year ago, anti-communist demonstrations were unthinkable. Now Hungary's Communist Party has dumped its old policies, its old leaders, even its old name, in a scramble just to survive. In a country where reform has been so rapid and relentless, Hungarians believe not even the fall of Mikhail Gorbachev could stop it.
Even if Gorbachev will disappear from one day to the other, Soviet Union never can go back to a Stalinist system.
Tonight, thousands of Hungarians relive the revolution, retracing the steps of the soldiers who tried to hold back the Soviets. This time, the tanks were missing. Martha Teichner, CBS News, Budapest.
East Germany's movement for democracy is still growing. Tonight, hundreds of thousands of people demonstrated in 4 East German cities calling for free elections. The resignation last week of hardline communist leader Erich Honecker seems only to have further fueled the drive for reform. Correspondent Alan Pizzi is on the scene in East Germany.
It was the biggest demonstration of dissent in East Germany's 40-year history. More than 200,000 people chanting "Free elections, we want reforms," and "Down with the secret police" filled the streets of the industrial city of Leipzig. The police left the demonstrators alone, a sign that the new East German leadership knows it is under pressure. The police have been accused of brutality in quelling earlier demonstrations. The church provides what pro-democracy leaders call the only roof under which they can safely organize. Tonight in the Gethsemane Church, speakers denounced the new East German leader Egon Krenz as a fraud. State-controlled media coverage of pro-democracy demonstrations has been unusually frank, and government officials have held open forums in an effort to keep protests off the streets. Krenz has said there are lessons to be learned from Moscow, but opponents remain skeptical of the former security chief, who praised the way Chinese leaders crushed protest in Tiananmen Square. Opposition groups want action on specific complaints.
Freedom of traveling is of utmost importance. That is what could, in the long run, change the whole mood of those who are staying here.
But thousands of East Germans are still fleeing to the West, and the government fears issuing exit visas would merely accelerate the process.
The East German parliament meets tomorrow for the first time under the leadership of Egon Krenz, and the growing opposition movements are demanding that there be only one item on its agenda: reform. Alan Pizzi, CBS News, East Berlin.
A candid admission today from Soviet Foreign Minister Shevardnadze. He said Soviet leaders did know for years that they were violating a 1972 arms control pact by building a huge radar complex in Siberia. Construction on the complex was finally halted last year following repeated protests from Washington. Shevardnadze implied that some aspects of the project had been concealed even from Kremlin leaders. U.S. Secretary of State Baker called those remarks an encouraging sign. In a speech today, Baker said the U.S. and Moscow have a historic chance to move beyond the Cold War to, quote, a new strategic relationship. Ronald and Nancy Reagan went to the Imperial Palace in Tokyo today for lunch with the Emperor. Mr. Reagan got Japan's highest award, the Supreme Order of the Chrysanthemum, for promoting friendship and free trade while he was president. The Reagans reportedly are also getting a $2 million fee from the Japanese corporation sponsoring their visit.
Is that all there is? It's kind of simple, isn't it? You sure all the good stuff hasn't sunk to the bottom? Well, where's the buried treasure? There's no mystery. Sip. This is just flakes. Mmm. I can actually taste the cereal. It doesn't need anything else. The naked truth. Now, I like that.
Kellogg's Corn Flakes.
Corn Flakes?
Taste them again for the first time.
Kmart presents At Home with Martha Stewart.
One thing no one should be without is a good collection of glassware. Mine includes Wexford Beverageware from Anchor Hawking. It comes in iced tea, rocks, and beverage sizes, all in an attractive cut glass pattern that looks good and stands up to just about anything. These happen to be my personal favorites.
Make your house a home with Anchor Hawking glassware from Kmart.
Now, the most important words in pain relief in 100 years. Motrin IB. No prescription needed for effective relief of headache and muscle ache. New Motrin IB. Doctor-recommended pain relief.
Denturewares. It's the fresh mouth with fresh news. New Super Strength Collagen now controls tartar for a better clean and freshens up dentures with a minty mouthwash ingredient. Try new Polidin Green. A better mouth freshening clean.
A powerful aftershock, 5.2 on the Richter scale, shook northern China tonight, 5 days after a major earthquake destroyed thousands of homes in the area. Most of the people who lost their homes are still living outdoors or in improvised shelters. And as our correspondent John Sheehan reports, they're getting only minimal help from the Chinese government.
Lu Shui got out just as his mud brick house collapsed. He was injured by a falling wall. Ho Shui Tie's arm seems to be broken. He supports it with a newspaper and a scrap of cloth. They won't get medical treatment, they said, because there's no doctor in town. The nearest government clinic is too far away and charges too much money. In this mountainous, desperately poor area, a 10-hour drive west of Beijing, as many as 100,000 people are believed to be homeless.
Aside from the physical damage, there is emotional damage. Here in the village of Dawang, Shanxi province, even though some of the buildings were left standing, the people are afraid to sleep in them at night for fear there will be another earthquake.
The Chinese government has allocated a grand total of $56,000 for earthquake relief, less than $1 per victim. State-run news organizations have given scant coverage to the earthquake, possibly because of a Chinese superstition that natural disasters imply divine disapproval of the rulers. The only relief supplies to reach Dawang are a few rolls of plastic sheeting. Villagers don't expect there'll be any more aid. A message of sympathy from communist leaders called on the people of the devastated villages to show a spirit of hard struggle and self-reliance. Instead of food and clothing, they get slogans, and they're bitter about it. So when about 20 soldiers arrived to help dig for salvageable belongings, the people of Dawang ignored them. At the base of the Ma Fo Tuan Mountains, the town of West Tuanpu suffered 5 dead, dozens of injured, and massive damage to houses. Without government help, the Twos are giving up. Unable to replace the house they've lost, they took to the road to seek shelter somewhere before the onset of winter. John Sheehan, CBS News, Shanxi Province, China.
Citing health reasons, the U.S. government today banned imports of canned mushrooms from China. That's a lot of mushrooms. About 2/3 of the U.S. supply is imported, and about half of that comes from the People's Republic of China. The Food and Drug Administration in Washington said unsanitary conditions in Chinese factories have been linked to outbreaks of food poisoning in this country.
Let's go with this fabric. To my customers, every little detail means a lot, so I can't stop when my minor arthritis pain acts up. So instead of aspirin, I take Advil. My doctor told me to try Advil when my hands feel stiff from the pain. You know, one Advil is as effective as 2 regular aspirin. And that's the kind of strength I like. Yet Advil's gentler to my stomach than aspirin. For hours of relief, Advil is just my style. Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
A1, it's how steak is done.
Getting out and enjoying yourself. That's what life is all about. And it's easy when you have the best bladder control protection. Depend Undergarments has special layers of absorbency that won't bunch or sag, and elastic legs for a better fit. They're the best protection and the best way for you to get back into life. Hey!
Get back into life with Depend.
Now available with and without elastic legs.
Under the heading Lest We Forget, because it seems some people already have forgotten Hurricane Hugo, the storm that crashed ashore in South Carolina September 21st. Before it exhausted itself, the hurricane killed at least 47 people and caused damage estimated at more than $5 billion. According to some, it was the nation's costliest natural disaster ever until the California earthquake. Correspondent Richard Schlesinger reports on some of the lessons of Hurricane Hugo.
Victims of Hurricane Hugo are learning now what the victims of California's earthquake will soon learn. Disaster aid is slow in coming. Huge South Carolina today looks almost the same as it did a month ago.
I just believe God, that He'll work everything out all right for me.
What about the federal government?
Well, they haven't said anything, not yet.
23 for today. Hugo's victims are living by the numbers, waiting in line for a precious appointment with the Red Cross or FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. For many, it's the only help available.
The job today is really no smaller than the day that Hugo made landfall here in Charleston.
More than 50,000 families have applied for help, among them Julia Armstrong and her 89-year-old mother. Their house lost the roof. Strangers who heard of their plight put on a new one, but it leaks and they still can't live here.
What do you think's going to happen to you?
I don't know. I just hope and pray that I get help someday.
FEMA representatives have visited some of the homes here, but the people we spoke to have gotten no grants, no homes, and no idea when they're going to get some answers.
I can't do it any faster than I'm going with the volume of people I have.
FEMA still has more than 12,000 families waiting for temporary housing. Each family's house has to be inspected before checks are printed. It's the same procedure California earthquake victims will have to follow.
Do you have any advice for the folks in California?
Yeah, be patient. That's all I can tell them. Be patient. It's going to take a while.
It's taken a month, and South Carolina is still cleaning up, still trying to be patient. Richard Schlesinger, CBS News, Hugie, South Carolina.
President Bush today signed into law an $11 billion Interior Department spending bill. Among other things, the legislation will delay offshore oil and gas drilling covering 84 million acres. The moratorium includes tracts off the coasts of California, Alaska, and Massachusetts.
Attention shredded wheat eaters, you've been missing something. Taste, but no more. Kellogg's Squares brings you that superlative shredded wheat nutrition with no salt, no fat, no cholesterol. But wait, Kellogg's Squares gives you free in every bite. Taste. Sweet, delectable fruit in the middle. You might never eat plain old shredded wheat again. Kellogg's Squares, shredded wheat with taste, free in every bite. And speaking of taste, now Squares have 35% more raisin. Great taste, free.
Ever try this coffee?
Oh, no. I use a special blend, brewed fresh.
So do we. But then we freeze dry it to lock in superior flavor and aroma until you release it.
Perfect. Who are you?
We're Taster's Choice.
Kmart presents At Home with Martha Stewart.
Corning's Pyrex bakeware and French white and Corelle dinnerware make even my best recipes turn out better.
Make your house a home with Corning products from Kmart.
The Subaru Legacy L and the Toyota Camry DLX. Which one is the bigger value? Well, the Subaru Legacy has a lot of standard features the competition doesn't, like more horsepower, power windows and door locks, more rear legroom, and four-wheel disc brakes. So, comparing the Subaru Legacy and the Camry, it's obvious. The Camry's not even in the picture. See your Subaru dealer for details on the special value lease program.
With all the attention understandably centered on the San Francisco area, it's easy to forget that other parts of this country face an earthquake threat. For example, scientists say that one region of the country, with 7 states, faces an earthquake threat second only to nuclear war from the so-called New Madrid Fault in Missouri. Did you know that early in the 19th century, that fault, represented here by the slash, triggered one of the greatest earthquakes ever recorded in this country, permanently changing the landscape? It did, and as Gary Reeves reports, there is concern that what happened almost 190 years ago could happen again.
Scientists are digging deep into the Missouri clay north of Memphis, probing for the massive New Madrid Fault, source of the nation's worst earthquakes ever.
We know that sleeping underneath this area is still a giant that can wake up and shake the earth at any time.
The 3 great earthquakes here in 1811 and 12 were believed to be over 8 on the Richter scale. They changed the flow of the Mississippi River and cracked foundations in Washington, D.C. They destroyed the old town of New Madrid, but the people living here now try not to worry about it.
You know, they keep saying it's going to happen, and it's going to happen. But they just hope that they won't be here when it does happen.
There are 200 tremors a year here, most too small to be felt. But scientists predict a major earthquake in the next few decades, one between 6 and 7 on the Richter scale. And it would hit hardest in Memphis, just 35 miles from the fault's southern end. A federal study predicts an earthquake of 7.6 here would kill 2,500, destroy most of the old brick buildings, and leave water, sewer, and transportation systems in shambles.
We might end up with a large bridge out in the middle of the river that we can't get to.
The soft soil here would spread the tremors 10 times farther than in California, possibly rupturing the pipelines that fuel the east. A quarter of the deaths could come in the schools, where students are just beginning to study earthquake preparedness.
All 35 of us are not going to be able to go to the doorway and brace ourselves like this.
Memphis building codes require no earthquake engineering, so the new 22,000-seat Great Pyramid Stadium is going up unprotected. Should be raised. They're still fighting over how high.
The people that say we should be in the same zone as California, I think, are trying to spend money that should not be spent.
Building code changes are expected by year's end, but they will do nothing to protect what's already here. Gary Reeves, CBS News, Memphis.
And that's part of our world tonight. Dan Rather for the CBS Evening News. See you tomorrow. Good night.
I'm Harry Smith. Tomorrow, Jeff Bridges on CBS This Morning. Later this week, First Lady Barbara Bush. Also, Mark Harmon on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.